For 3 years, Sarah had worked diligently as a maid in Mr. Thomas's home while attending college. Thomas, a successful businessman, had always treated her with respect, and Sarah appreciated the opportunity to balance work and school. But everything changed the day Thomas had a terrible accident. It left him temporarily crippled, unable to get out of bed or even take care of his basic needs. The situation quickly became overwhelming. His fiancée, unable to handle the stress of caring for him, left, saying she couldn't take it anymore. His mother stepped in to help, but after a few weeks, she too grew tired and eventually moved out, saying she had her own life to live. Before she left, Thomas's mother called Sarah aside and told her, "You should leave too. No one will be able to pay you anymore." Sarah was conflicted. She hadn't been paid in weeks, and she was struggling to keep up with her college expenses. But the thought of leaving Thomas, helpless and alone, haunted her. He had no one else. Despite her financial worries, Sarah decided to stay and continue caring for him, even without pay. To make ends meet, she borrowed money from her friends, using it to buy groceries and medicine for Thomas. She even managed to scrape together enough to pay for his physical therapy sessions, believing he could recover with the right treatment. Thomas, however, was slipping into depression. When he found out that his fiancée had abandoned him and his mother was traveling the world, leaving him in Sarah's care, he fell into a deep despair, barely speaking for weeks. One day, Sarah gently mentioned that she had been paying for his therapy sessions. Thomas was stunned. "You've been paying for my treatments? But you have no money yourself." Sarah smiled softly. "I couldn't leave you like this. You've always been kind to me, and I believe you'll recover." Thomas was deeply moved by her sacrifice. He remembered that he had a locker in the house where he had stored some emergency cash. Quietly, he used the money to repay Sarah for everything she had borrowed to take care of him. He knew it wasn't enough to repay her kindness, but it was a start. As the weeks turned into months, Thomas slowly began to recover. With Sarah's unwavering support, the physical therapy worked wonders. After 6 months of intensive training, he was able to walk again, regaining his independence. During this time, he and Sarah grew closer. She became more than just a maid to him. She became his friend, his confidant, and the one person he looked forward to seeing every day. When Sarah returned home from school each evening, they would eat together, sharing stories of their day. Thomas began to realize that his feelings for Sarah had grown into something deeper. She had stood by him when everyone else had abandoned him, and her selflessness had healed more than just his body. It had healed his heart. Once Thomas had fully recovered, he returned to his business, reclaiming control from his mother, who had been mismanaging his affairs. He cut off her access to his accounts and took charge of his life once more. His mother was shocked by his recovery and even more stunned when she realized how close he had become to Sarah. Thomas's mother couldn't accept that her son had grown so fond of Sarah. She began accusing Sarah of turning him against her, but Thomas wouldn't hear it. Sarah had been his rock through the hardest time of his life, and no one could change that. To make matters worse, Thomas's former fiancée returned, begging for another chance. But Thomas had already moved on. He firmly kicked her out, knowing that her love had been conditional, based only on his wealth and status. As Sarah's graduation approached, Thomas knew he couldn't wait any longer. He had fallen deeply in love with her. On the night of her graduation, he surprised her with a romantic dinner, pouring his heart out and telling her how much she meant to him. Then, he got down on one knee and proposed, asking her to be by his side for the rest of their lives. With tears in her eyes, Sarah accepted. They had gone through so much together, and now they could finally look forward to a future filled with love, happiness, and the promise of better days ahead.